specifically being an obstetrician. I know you were in the Air Force as a flight surgeon, but I decided to become an obstetrician.
But when I finished medical school, it was in 1961. I went into further training at the Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. I was doing internal medicine and going into general practice. But in October of 1962, there was a major event going on in our country, and that was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Uncle Sam called me, and I was drafted. And actually, they sent me a draft notice, but they said if I volunteered, instead of being a buck private in the Army, I could be a captain and practice medicine. So I said I volunteered. So I went in the Air Force. I wanted to be in the Air Force and practice as a flight surgeon. Then when I got out, it was that time that I had rethought my plans about what branch of medicine I wanted to go in, and just decided. And I thought that OB was a happy branch of medicine, and even though the hours can be long and sometimes unusual, but it was, I think it was the attractiveness of the happy part of medicine and new life was very exciting to me, and it was just exciting. And I love medicine, and actually when I went into politics, it wasn't like I went into politics, it was just that I'd gotten fascinated in economics, and I wanted to just speak out, because even in the early 1970s, the free market economists were predicting exactly the problems that we're facing today, and it was that reason I just wanted to, do something other than just medicine. So that's when I ran for Congress, was elected to Congress, and ended up being there longer than I thought.
And we're happy to do it. So this year the deficit's, I think, over $1.7 trillion. The national debt's up to $15 trillion. And you propose a plan to cut in the first year $1 trillion and then to balance the budget. Why do you think that this kind of approach will help the economy? I know a lot of other people say that we need to spend more money, the government needs to spend more money. Yeah,
it's a challenge on economic philosophies. Most of us in college, and I'm sure there's many colleges that still teaches liberal economics, and that is that the driving force of the economy is people to spend money, even if they don't have it. If people don't have it, they're supposed to borrow it and spend it, and that drives it. That challenges the free market thinking that how the economy works is you work hard, and if you can save a little money, now you use it up, you save it, and that becomes capital, and then you invest it and build capital or build businesses or let somebody else do it by loaning out money. So it's savings and capital investment that creates the jobs and then the prosperity, not the spending. But the liberal economists, Keynesians, say that when people like you quit spending money or you're not spending enough, they encourage people to spend, but if they won't do it, maybe they don't have a job. Or maybe they have 7 credit cards and can't get another one. So that's hardly going to be the solution. So they have the answer for that. Then the government has to spend money. Then they ask the question, where's the government going to get the money? And they say, well, they'll use taxes. They'll just tax it. But what if there aren't enough people to tax and the revenues go down? Well, then they'll borrow the money. So they start borrowing money. And what happens when you borrow so much that you are the biggest debtor in the world, which we are, foreign debt. We owe $3 trillion. We owe all this money to China. So then the last resort is what the liberals have taught. Well, in that case, what you do is you print the money. Now, I claim that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I also claim that monetary policy isn't as complex as they'd like us to think about it, because for the most part, if you think, well, when you need money, you print it. If you do it, anybody in this room does, oh, I need money, can't get another credit card, then if I print money, they call that counterfeiting, and you go to prison. So I think we should apply the same rules to the government and the Federal Reserve if they're counterfeiting our money. So, when you get into that mass, government's too big and the debt is too big, and that's why we're doing this. You have to cut spending, and that's why I proposed the $1 trillion cut.
So as I mentioned in my introduction, the other thing to support you was that I saw in the military a lot of overseas spending towards policing the world versus defense. And so I draw a distinction between military spending in fact, one of the things that really frustrated me was that they created the Department of Homeland Security to defend the country. It's like, what was I doing? You proposed some cuts as part of the budget to military spending. Is that military spending or defense spending, and how would a defense be under all presidents?
Yeah, I think that's important, but I always thought it was the Second Amendment that defended this country. Constitutionally, I might have to do something about this. Constitutionally, that's one of the major responsibilities of the federal government. It's not the responsibility of the states. Obviously, we have a right to defend ourselves. But we have no authority to police the world. And it's not a good idea. And that money is not defense money. That is military money. It's what Eisenhower warned us about. Maybe we'd be building weapons and getting involved, and it would be a subsidy of the military-industrial complex, and that's where we are. So one of the things that they might throw back at us who believe this way that, you're cutting defense, you don't care about the defense of this country. Well, if you cut military spending that's just getting us into trouble, that's not cutting defense. In fact, if you have a sound foreign policy and you spend less money and you defend this country, you're going to have more defense for a lot less money. Now, Jim mentions about how he was in the Air Force and came around to this type of thinking and became a strong supporter. In Washington, though, we still hear a lot of grief. If you don't vote for the wars, you don't vote for all this funding, and you argue this case, you're un-American, you're unpatriotic, you don't support the troops. But like Jim, there are many others, and maybe you've read this already, but when they break down the donations to the various campaigns, you find out that our campaign has gotten twice as much money from active military people than all the other candidates put together.
The final question is, there's a financial crisis that's been unfolding in Europe, and the Federal Reserve is starting to try to stem that with our dollars. What do you think will happen with this, and what kind of effect is this going to have on the American people?
Well, are you in an optimistic mood tonight or a pessimist? Actually, it doesn't matter because I usually give the best straight answer I can. I think it's a mess. I think it's so much worse than they will admit to. I think that's why it's getting worse. It's been bad for 4 years. And this is why they won't look. If they knew what was really going on, they would cut spending. They wouldn't be proposing more spending. And you talk about it because they know people like you are starting to say, hey, aren't you people spending too much money and why don't you balance the budget? But they're not talking about it. They're talking about cutting $1 trillion plus over 10 years. And that is only a cut in the proposed increases. No absolute cuts. They're not even going to start to after 2013. And now, we've bailed out just about everybody so far when it comes to the banks and corporations. But now it's Europe. We're getting ready to bail out Greece and Italy and Spain and all of Europe. It can't be done. It's unsustainable. We've already been downgraded once, and we're on the verge of having our credit rating downgraded again. But it's still the currency that people are hoping and praying will pull this all together. The only thing they know how to do is create more money. And the markets are up and down. One day they make this announcement that they're going to get together and solve this problem. The market is up 200-300 points. And the next day they know it's not going to work, and then the markets go down. No, this is going to get much worse because they won't address the subject. They won't admit that government is too big and the debt is too big, and that all they offer is to print more money. And, today there was a poll done today that I think was, and you'll probably see it on the news if you haven't seen it, which I thought was rather significant. They did a poll and asked the people who you're angry at. Everybody recognizes we have a problem. Who are you most angry at? Is it big corporations? Is it big labor? Or big government? 64% said it's big government. They fear big government.